Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank the members for their speeches and for their support of the bill. I will now respond to the queries raised by members, which fall under several broad themes. First, borrower protection and public education, unlicensed money lending, advertising by moneylenders, usage and protection of borrowers' confidential data, operationalizing and enforcing the provisions of the bill, and the recommendations of the Advisory Committee on Money Lending. I will address each of these in turn. Some members have raised concerns about whether the aggregate loan cap will drive borrowers to borrow from unlicensed moneylenders. Mr. Daniel Goh asked about the money lending trends which have led to the introduction of this aggregate loan cap. As explained in my speech, the cap was a recommendation of the Advisory Committee of Money Lending in 2015 and has been calibrated to achieve a balance between protecting borrowers and preserving reasonable access to credit. Since the recommendation was made, we have observed an upward trend in the amount of outstanding debt owed by money lending borrowers. Among Singaporean borrowers who took out loans between March 2016 and March 2017, nearly 2% will have an outstanding balance exceeding the incoming cap. This is not a big number, around 610 borrowers, but the aggregate cap will help us to nip the overborrowing in the bud before it gets worse. Mr. Gan Thiam Poh had also asked for 2017 statistics on the number of borrowers and the amount of outstanding loans and why people borrow. As at the third quarter of 2017, around 41,000 individuals borrowed from moneylenders, and around 80% of these were Singaporean citizens and permanent residents subject to regulatory loan caps. Their total outstanding loan amount was 339 million. Based on a 2013 study commissioned by the Ministry of Law, borrowers who were interviewed said that the top 3 reasons for borrowing were to pay household bills, settle an outstanding loan from another moneylender, and to pay debts owed to friends or relatives. That said, such self-reported information cannot be independently verified and thus may not accurately represent why borrowers take out loans from moneylenders. What can we do to help over-indebted borrowers? Engineer Dr. Lee Bee-Wah has asked whether borrowers who have reached the cap will be required to attend credit counselling. People borrow for different reasons, and we have no plans to make credit counselling mandatory. However, to complement the aggregate cap, the MLCB will send letters to over-indebted borrowers who are likely to exceed the cap when it comes into effect to advise them to reduce their debt early. The letter will also contain details of voluntary welfare organizations who are able to assist borrowers with financial counseling and debt management, including restructuring or consolidating their money lending debt. Borrowers who need help can approach these VWOs. Additionally, as I mentioned in my speech, MinLaw will continue to work with VWOs and the money lending industry to help these borrowers to improve their situation. Dr. Lee, Mr. Gan, and Mr. Desmond Chu have suggested educational campaigns on financial management and debt issues. There are ongoing public education efforts. Money Sense, a national financial education program spearheaded by the Financial Education Steering Committee, chaired by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, has conducted campaigns on the prudent use of unsecured credit and to encourage prudent borrowing habits by consumers. The campaigns educate individuals on how to avoid the pitfall of excessive debt, how to effectively manage debt, and the importance of sound financial planning. In the current campaign, running from November 2017 to January 2018, Money Sense's key message is on the prudent use of unsecured credit. In addition to these efforts to enhance borrower protection and inculcate responsible borrowing, unlicensed money lending has been and will continue to be tackled head-on. We already have in place stringent laws to penalize unlicensed money lending. In the 2010 amendments to the Moneylenders Act, penalties for unlicensed money lending were increased, and a person convicted for the first time for an offence of unlicensed money lending will be liable to caning of 6 strokes. In response to Mr. Goh's query on the number of unlicensed moneylending cases reported and the number of offenders arrested, there were 550 reports of unlicensed moneylending to the police in 2016, while 1,100 persons were arrested in that same year. This is a continued decline from the 1,255 arrests made in 2015. Hence, there's no evidence that the 2015 tightening pushed more borrowers to unlicensed money lending. We will, however, continue to monitor this closely. Dr. Lee and Mr. Gan have asked whether the government will be enhancing penalties for unlicensed money lending activities. The government takes the view that the current penalties are sufficient. Besides the severity of penalties, strong enforcement is important. The police adopts a multi-pronged approach: tough enforcement action, leveraging technology through the use of police cameras, community partnership, and public education. I'm glad to inform the House that unlicensed money lending related cases registered a 10-year low in 2016. We will continue to monitor the effectiveness of current measures to ensure that the situation remains under control. I now turn to money lending advertisements and the transparency of borrowing costs. Mr. Louis Ng had asked about MinLaw's plans to regulate advertisements by licensed moneylenders. Mr. Yam has asked if moneylenders will advise borrowers on the costs of borrowing and how the Registry of Moneylenders will ensure that they do so, while Mr. Chu has asked whether MinLaw will consider imposing a condition requiring all moneylenders to provide a full disclosure on the total amount payable for their loans on their websites and advertisements. The advertisement of money lending services is tightly restricted under existing laws and regulations. Under the Registrar's Directions on Advertising, issued on 31st July 2013, licensed moneylenders are only allowed to advertise on the facades of their approved places of business, their own internet websites, and business or consumer directories in print or online media. Licensed moneylenders are strictly prohibited from advertising on online social platforms by mobile short messaging service or SMSs, or other messaging applications such as WhatsApp or WeChat. Platforms which do not fall within the Registrar's Directions on Advertising are also prohibited. Section 16 of the Moneylenders Act provides that such advertisements must not contain false or misleading material. Subsection 2 of that section and the Registrar's Directions also sets out the types of information which must be stated clearly in the advertisement, including the licensee's business name and license number, and the contractual interest rate being offered strictly as a percentage per annum. Section 19 of the Moneylenders Act already requires moneylenders to clearly explain the loan terms to borrowers, and Rule 8 of the Moneylenders Rules specifies the details that moneylenders must convey to borrowers. These include the nominal interest rate, the method of computing interest, and the permitted fees payable, among other things. Dr. Lee has also asked about advertisements for hire purchases. These are regulated by the Hire Purchase Act, not the Moneylenders Act. To enable consumers to make informed decisions about hire purchase schemes, the Hire Purchase Act specifies the minimum information that owners must provide to prospective hirers in writing before they enter into a hire purchase agreement, such as charges for early settlement, effective interest rates for overdue installments, and administrative charges. An agreement that does not provide such information will not be enforceable. The government strongly encourages consumers to review the terms carefully and assess their ability to meet the financial commitments before signing any such agreement. More broadly, MAS is working with MoneySense to raise consumer awareness on the potential costs and pitfalls of installment plans. Mr. Chu, Mr. Yi, and Mr. Ng have asked whether we're working with MHA and other agencies on the problem of illegal advertising using spam text messages. Anyone who receives an SMS or WhatsApp advertisement should not respond and should instead make a report to the police. The police will also conduct an investigation to establish the identity of the person sending the spam message and take action which may include the termination of the SIM cards with the telecommunication companies. If the moneylender has a license, the police will refer the case to the registry, who will investigate and take appropriate action. The police is also working with the Moneylenders Association of Singapore, Infocom Media Development Authority, and the Personal Data Protection Commission to educate the general public on how to deal with such spam sent by unlicensed moneylenders offering loans. I now turn to another important issue which some members have highlighted, the usage and protection of borrowers' data. Mr. Yee has cited instances where his constituents receive unsolicited SMSs from unlicensed moneylenders offering loans after they had been approached by licensed moneylenders. MinLaw takes a strict view of borrower data protection, and the bill reflects this. For example, Section 30R of the amended Act imposes duties on every moneylender to maintain the security of any information in any credit report received from the designated credit bureau. Failure to comply is punishable by a fine of $20,000 and/or imprisonment of up to 6 months. Any licensed moneylender found to have colluded with an unlicensed moneylender by passing on customer information will have his license revoked and will be prosecuted under the Moneylenders Act. Such behavior is punishable under the Act by a fine of between $30,000 to $300,000 for individuals and between $50,000 and $500,000 for bodies corporate, as well as up to 6 strokes of the cane for a first-time offence and up to 12 strokes of the cane for subsequent offences. The harsh penalties reflect our serious stance towards such abuses of borrower data. All of these provisions seek to deter illegitimate usage and disclosure of borrower information. At this point, I would like to clarify how the MLCB operates. The MLCB is a centralized data bureau. It is not a moneylender. The private company that operates the MLCB will be designated under the amended Act and subject to the full suite of legal obligations we are introducing in the new Part 3A of the Act. These include strict requirements on maintaining borrower privacy and data confidentiality. MinLaw regulates the MLCB. Moneylenders may only submit borrower information to the MLCB through the MLCB's secure IT portal. As to Dr. Intan's query on the sharing of borrower information, Section 30Q of the amended Act prohibits moneylenders from sharing borrower information with anyone else besides the MLCB, the registrar, and its own employees in the course of their work. This means that an individual's banks and employers or any moneylender that he has not approached for a loan will not be able to access his credit report unless he chooses to provide it. Likewise, under Section 30W of the amended Act, the MLCB is not permitted to disclose any borrower information except to a moneylender processing a loan application from the concerned individual, to the individual himself, to the registrar, and to a public agency as directed by the registrar. Mr. Ng asked whether licensees should be subject to greater oversight in relation to data protection, and Dr. Intan asked how much individual information will be shared. Sir, moneylenders' access to data is limited to the circumstances spelt out in the Act, i.e., to determine an individual's creditworthiness, and the data provided to a moneylender is limited to the individual's details and the borrowings of that individual. The usage and disclosure of such information by moneylenders are also subject to the regulations I mentioned earlier. Individual licensed moneylenders, just like clinics or financial institutions that also possess sensitive personal information, will need to comply with the PDPC's guidelines on the management of data breaches. In comparison, the MLCB is the custodian of all borrower data across the industry. There is, therefore, an imperative to impose a higher duty of care for the MLCB to maintain the confidentiality and security of borrower data, as we have done under Section 30ZA of the amended Act. As for Mr. Ng's question about public agencies' use of data, only the specific officers and the departments that require the data will have access to it. The public service is governed by instruction manuals, which obliges public agencies to protect personal data and access information only on a need-to-know basis. Some members have also raised a number of questions relating to how various provisions of the bill will be operationalized and enforced. Mr. Gan has asked whether the reports relied upon by moneylenders is based on other moneylenders updating the system, and whether any lead time might lead to system arbitrages and leakages. The MLCB is a real-time credit bureau, and any loans taken by a borrower will be automatically updated against his record. If a borrower approaches a moneylender and is offered a loan and does not immediately decide if he wishes to take it, the system will reserve that amount against his name. This way, the borrower cannot borrow over the permitted cap, even if he approaches a second moneylender before confirming his loan with the first moneylender. Dr. Fatima Latif and Dr. Intan have asked how a borrower's limit will be checked. We have designed a rigorous process to enforce compliance with the aggregate cap. Before granting a loan to the borrower, Section 30N of the amended Moneylenders Act requires moneylenders to obtain a real-time credit report from the MLCB. The credit report will contain aggregated information about all the loans the borrower has taken from licensed moneylenders. After obtaining the report, the moneylender must ensure that a further loan will not result in the borrower exceeding the aggregate cap before granting that loan. Failure to abide by this verification process is punishable by a fine of $20,000 and/or imprisonment of up to 6 months. Given the penalties, to answer Mr. Yam's query, the nominal fee of 50 cents per credit report is unlikely to deter moneylenders from conducting due diligence before lending. In fact, the majority of moneylenders already purchase these credit reports as a matter of course. There are also inbuilt checks within the MLCB's IT system to prevent a moneylender from unknowingly lending beyond the aggregate cap, and the registry will conduct periodic audits to monitor compliance. With the MLCB in operation, such borrowers who fail to repay their loans will leave a record. In the event of default, the usual form of recourse is for the moneylenders to pursue a civil claim against the borrowers for an unpaid debt. Under the law, there is a distinction between the non-payment of debt, which is a civil claim, and cheating, which is a criminal offense. Not all cases of defaulting debts will result in criminal investigations or prosecutions. Moneylenders are encouraged to review and strengthen their due diligence processes before issuing loans. Rule 9.2 of the Moneylenders Rules state that a licensee shall require the borrower to provide reliable and independent documentary evidence in support of all information provided in the loan application form and verify the information against such evidence. This would include a borrower's actual address. Besides asking for a borrower's identity card to verify his actual address, other documents like IRAS and CPF statements and utility bills can be requested from a borrower. Professor Latif and Mr. Yam have also asked about oversight over whether moneylenders fulfill their obligation to update the MLCB after dispensing a loan under Section 3N of the amended Act. In addition to the registrar's regular audits, Section 24A of the amended Act requires all licensees to conduct independent audits of the licensee's accounts and to submit those audited financial statements to the registrar every year. This will help ensure that moneylenders are reporting all their transactions accurately. If these audits reveal that there are loans which have not been reported accurately, appropriate action will be taken against the licensees. Next, in relation to the bill's prescribed conditions on the suitability of individuals to participate in money lending activity, Mr. Ng has asked how the Singapore authorities are able to assess whether an individual had previously carried out money lending activity in a foreign country but had his license revoked. The registry has a number of tools which allow them to conduct checks on relevant personnel and their involvement in foreign money lending businesses, and where there is evidence to suggest that a further investigation should be carried out, we will work with the relevant authorities to do so. Mr. Ng has also asked whether the registrar will be providing reasons when rejecting an application, and what channels and grounds of appeal are available to a rejected applicant. Even though there is no statutory right of appeal available for a rejected applicant, the registrar will provide the rejected applicant with reasons for the rejection. It is worth highlighting that the grounds for denial of approval are largely based on indisputable matters of fact, as spelt out in subsections 4 to 5 of sections 11A and 11B of the amended Act. That said, subsection 7 of the same two sections do provide that the licensee seeking to employ or hire an applicant has a right to be heard by the registrar, and that the registrar may not refuse to grant such approval unless the licensee has been heard first. Mr. Goh also asked about peer-to-peer lending platforms and whether the present law is effective to tackle the potential of such platforms being de facto moneylenders. Sir, Section 3 of the Moneylenders Act states that any person other than an excluded moneylender who lends a sum of money in consideration of a larger sum being repaid shall be presumed unless the contrary is proved to be a moneylender. This presumption is sufficiently expansive to cover peer-to-peer platforms and their participants. The government has been monitoring such platforms and has so far not found them to have run afoul of our laws. We will continue to keep a close watch to ensure a proper balance between providing the space for these fintech innovations and protecting vulnerable Singaporeans. Mr. Chu has also asked about the number of complaints against licensed moneylenders received by the registry. In 2016, 124 reports were received by the registry, and this number dropped to 104 in 2017. There are two main types of reports received. The first type are requests for assistance to renegotiate their contracts with the moneylenders. Such requests would be referred to an appropriate VWO for assistance. The second type are complaints about debt collection and harassment. The registry will speak to the moneylender concerned and also advise the complainant to lodge a police report if the debt collection activities in question may be criminal in nature. The registry will continue to take licensing action where infractions are committed. MinLaw issues press releases when moneylenders are convicted of offences under the Moneylenders Act. Nonetheless, we will take Mr. Chu's suggestion on board and consider how to make the list of suspended moneylenders more visible on the registry's website. Mr. Yam has asked about the measures being taken to get the remaining licensees who have not corporatized to comply. The bill introduces a new Section 6A, which provides that only a company with the prescribed paid-up capital may hold a license after the appointed day. A license held by any other body or individual person will be deemed to have been revoked, and he will be considered to have been engaging in money lending without a license, which is punishable under the current Section 14. Mr. Goh has also asked a number of questions on the recommendations of the Advisory Committee on Money Lending. For the recommendation on the lifting of the moratorium on the granting of new licenses, as mentioned in my speech earlier, MinLaw is exploring lifting the moratorium in a limited and controlled fashion to allow a few new players with established track records in related financial areas to pilot new business models. More details will be released when ready. For the recommendation on the creation of guidelines for debt collecting practices, a point which Mr. Yam had also raised, MinLaw is working with the Moneylenders Association of Singapore to develop a handbook for licensed moneylenders to encourage professional and fair business practices, which include debt recovery approaches. MinLaw currently does not track statistics on how many moneylenders employ their own debt collectors and how many of them outsource this. That said, there are existing laws that adequately address unlawful debt collection practices, such as the Protection from Harassment Act and the Penal Code. I turn now to the recommendation relating to the monitoring of the location of moneylenders, and note that Mr. Chu also has asked if MinLaw will work with MND to curb the number of facilities in the heartlands. The registry conducted a geospatial study with the Singapore Land Authority in 2017 and found that borrowers are increasingly borrowing from moneylenders situated outside their neighborhoods. On the whole, there is no evidence that the location of moneylenders induces borrowing. Nonetheless, we will continue to monitor the situation. As for the recommendation on standardizing loan products, MinLaw took in the recommendation and amended the moneylenders rules in 2015 to mandate that all loan contracts provide for payment of equal installments at equal intervals of time to facilitate comparison of loan packages. But beyond this, MinLaw is mindful that over-standardization could prevent moneylenders from properly catering to the diverse risk profiles and needs of individuals who borrow from them. We believe that the best approach is to provide specific directions, such as Registrar's Directions Number 1 of 2017, which, amongst other things, prohibit short-term loans which are repeatedly refinanced or renewed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I would like to conclude by thanking the members once again for their support of the bill and for their invaluable feedback. The proposed amendments to the Act are important to support safer access to credit from licensed sources by those who most need it. MinLaw will continue to work with other agencies and stakeholders to protect individual borrowers while maintaining the access to credit. Sir, I beg to move.
Yes, Mr. Yee Chia Sing, you wanted to clarify something?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. On this issue of sharing of info from a licensed to unlicensed money lender, because they can just pass a sheet of paper at the coffee shop, it's very difficult to prove. So may I suggest to a regulator they consider having what we call mystery shopper. That means we get somebody approach a licensed money lender, and soon after that, then that person receive SMS, and if it's proven through multiple mystery shopper that approach this person and it's proven, then we have circumstantial grounds to charge that the money lender is indeed passing on information. Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank the member for his suggestion. We will look into it.